Ferraro. You might know me from teaching, or you might know me from hosting 1% Better podcast. It was fun to be able to create this and just dream this up and ask people like yourselves to join. It means an awful lot. I know you guys have been on a ton of Zoom calls this week. I tried to create something that would be totally different, invite 5 panelists. They said yes, and it's phenomenal. So just to review, what we'll do is they'll talk for 3 minutes. It sounds like a very short time for people that are used to speaking for 60 minutes, and they speak on stages all over the country. But my goal was to distill this down to its pure essence. In cooking, there's something called a reduction, where you just keep heating the sauce until all you're left with is the best possible stuff. So with that in mind, by asking them to talk with their best stuff on the topic of their choice for 3 minutes, followed up by questions from you, is a huge opportunity for you to get kind of an intimate access to the people. So our first speaker is Kevin. And if you know right now that you have a question for Kevin, all you have to do is put in the chat the word Kevin, and I'll sift through it and find out what questions you have. I mentioned earlier that bring a notebook. I love to have one handy, but the truth is there's going to be so much coming at you fast and furious that you might be better off just kind of listening and rocking and rolling later, because I'm going to make the chat available to you. I'm just muting a few more people before Kev gets started. If you have not muted yourself at this point, go ahead and do that now. Okay. All right, my first guest today is Kevin Wilson. He's probably the best listener I've ever been around. I've been listening to him, and he's been listening to me for maybe as far back as 1993. He's a Major League and minor league baseball hitting consultant, so coaches will certainly want to pay attention here. But another piece of the puzzle to him is he's worked with businesses, and he works with people on a personal level to just try to figure out a way to make them better. And he does it in a very zen, calming way that sometimes frustrates me because I wanted him to be my speed, and he wants me to be his speed sometimes. But I want to welcome him, my great friends.
Kevin. I can see these two singing this song at the Grammys or something, you know.
Kevin, how are you, brother?
Good, Joe. Appreciate you having me, and thank you, everybody, for being here. It's an honor to lead off, Joe. Last time I led off, we lost the conference championship game, so hopefully this will go better this time around. But I certainly want to I just want to know, thank you guys for being here, and just an honor to lead off. The thought that I have, and I want to discuss in these 3 minutes, is the thought of, obviously Joe said listening, but I really strongly believe that in order to be a world-class leader, you need to be a world-class listener. I'll say that again. In order to be a world-class leader, it could be a teacher, it could be a coach, it could be a mentor, it could be a friend, just leading another friend. You have to be a world-class listener. Now, a lot of people today listen to reply rather than listen to understand. A big piece of my job is to be able to get the facts, get the information out of the player in order to teach them properly. I treat everybody as an individual, and I think that's a big key to anybody's success within a team concept. You know, you have a 1 through 9 lineup. Everybody's going to be different. They're going to come from different backgrounds. They're going to have different thoughts and fears, anxieties, and strengths and weaknesses. In order for me to extract that and get that out, I need to be a world-class listener. And a part of being a world-class listener is, number one, ask a better question. In this summit here, the 1% Better Summit, for me, it's ask a 1% better question. And if you ask a better question and you listen to understand, and you're plugged into that person and you're locked into that person to understand them as a person, they're going to give you all the answers that you need in order to lead them properly. Because because in my job, if I mess up a big leaguer, it's a big deal. If back in the day doing lessons, if I messed up, no one knew about it. And so I think the higher up we get and the more people that we're leading, and perhaps the more important the job or the purpose of it is, I think that if we're there and we're listening to them to understand, they give us the answers and we solve the issue or the problem much quicker. So for me, I think that if we can do a better job of listening to understand rather than listening to reply, meaning most of us just sit there and we're thinking of our reply back to them as someone's trying to pour their heart and soul sometimes into us and just goes right over our head. So I think that's disrespectful to that person. Certainly we can't get to where we want to go as quick as we want to go. So next time that you're leading your team, leading your office, just even a friend, if you want to start with that, listen to understand, so that you guys can get to the solution to your problems quicker.
All right, that's Kevin with 3 tight minutes, man. I'm impressed. I do want to open it up to questions, and we're going to jump right in. We have a question from Matt. Excuse me. Let me go to Andre Harris. Andy Harris. Andy, jump in, unmute yourself, and jump in, brother.
Yeah, my question would just be to ask, I get the premise of listening to understand rather than listening to reply, but how do we do that? How do we listen to understand while we're in the midst of a conversation?
Yeah, great question. Just like I'm listening to you right now, like I'm really trying to be focused on what you're saying to me and just try to meet you where you're at. Really try to feel that tone, feel kind of where you're at and where you're trying to go. And for me too, it's also another way to put it is sometimes the best answer to a question is a question in return. If that makes sense. Sometimes the best answer to a question is a question in return. So if I'm really engaged in you and locked in you, I get your trust, I get your respect, I get to build the relationship more. And then by listening to you, I actually get to hear the words that are coming out. And like I said, with the tone, the inflection. And then if I have a question, I can ping it back to you and we can have a really good dialogue back and forth that's engaging.
Andy and others that are wondering before you have a question for Kevin, I just want to add a little color and say that once upon a time, I asked Kevin his favorite movie. And to me, I don't know about you guys, to me, that was a very simple question. I expected him to say The Italian Job or Ocean's 11, like every other red-blooded American. And instead, he hit me with a pause and said, well, what am I watching the movie for? And I was a little younger in my journey, a little green at that time, and I kind of made fun of him, probably stomped off, if I'm being honest. And then years later, it clicked that he was literally suggesting that he needs the word purpose involved. So if he's looking to unwind, he's going Italian Job. If he's looking to learn, he's going Jiro Dreams of Sushi. If he's looking to this, he's doing that. So Kev, does that figure into your listening process in terms of purpose?
Absolutely. I mean, your purpose provides your consistency. I'm a big believer in that. So anything that you do, and if you have a purpose of listening, so whether it's a movie question from my best friend or it's a client of mine in the major leagues, either way, to me, I take it serious. And you know as well as I do, Joe, I'm a jokester. You and I ping it back quite often, but I think that the consistency in how we grow and the consistency on how we show up each and every day is through that purpose. So we're talking about listening right now, but that could be anything.
Please type Kevin in the chat if you have a question for him. I'm always going to have a question. So I'll fill with the best questions I can. But if you have a question for Kevin, I'll unmute you. Just write your name and Kevin in there. You don't have to type your whole question out. Just your name. Kev, I'm reading a book right now in preparation for a guest coming up. Kate Murphy wrote a book called You're Not Listening. And it's a very pessimistic title. But in it, she paints a very bleak picture in which she says most people are terrible listeners. That's hard in a Zoom call to hear with 52 participants taking their free time to be here. But in your experience, talking to millionaires and little league dads, is that true? Are people not good listeners in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we could distill this down into one thing for me is that, and you're a teacher, Joe, and you know this, and a lot of others are educators on this call that I've seen so far, and you guys, I think, can relate to this, is we have to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And the reason that we do that is because a lot of us are terrible listeners, whether it's terrible listening because we don't agree with you, terrible listening because we're just not at that level yet to mature enough to understand it, or we're just in and out. We just kind of let things fly over our heads. So I always say, and when I'm talking to coaches or leaders, is assume that they, meaning the person you're talking to, knows nothing, right? And that might be derogatory to some, but I think it just covers a lot of things. It's like, hey, there are guys in the big leagues that I have to say the same thing to over and over every day, 162 days, 200 days. I have to start out the day reminding them of that. So I think in general, we are terrible listeners, but we certainly can sharpen that saw each and every day.
Kev, quickly, Sarah says, what's the biggest adjustment you made transitioning from the big leagues and working with more experienced and talented athletes? So Sarah's kind of asking about, going up a level or going down a level.
It really just, I have to be on my point. I have to be on my A game every single time. Like I said before, if I mess up a millionaire, everybody knows about it. If I mess up a 10-year-old, no one knows about it. And it really helps me prepare and sharpen my saw each and every day. Reading books, going outside of the world of baseball. Joe, you and I have had many discussions about this. I learned so much from people that some of the people on this call I've had interactions with and learned from, read their books, or we've been together, and maybe it didn't click at the moment, but they've taught me so much over time about how to be that world-class listener and how to work with those people. So I think going outside of our circles is also beneficial and able to learn how to communicate with them, because again, at the end of the day, Joe, I have to be a world-class listener because those guys in the big leagues know more than I do. I just trick them and take their information and turn it back to them.
I love it. I have a point and a final question for you, Kev. Just to underline what you said earlier about teaching kids and adults like they know nothing. What I've seen that to mean is you'll be working with a major league all-star, and you'll actually ask him, how does he put the ball on the tee? And because you develop that relationship and you're in the process of doing it, it's not condescending. It's a respect. I didn't know this at first, for the process. And hey, you might do it a different way. And I've seen you adjust when a player says, I do it this way for this reason. So I love that. There'll be more time for questions at the end from Kevin. The final one comes from Bob. If you type the question, I assume that's your way that you want to get the question in. Nothing wrong with that. Bob Russell asks, do you have clients that want you to talk more than you do? And this will be the final question until the end, Kev. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, great question with that. It's, again, you have to be a chameleon. You have to be flexible within your principles and your philosophy with that. Certainly as the relationship grows, we have more of a conversation. And so I'm not asking as much as I am. Maybe they're asking me. And because we're a little bit further down the road, I know I have the timing of my communication is really important. So with that timing, I know when to push the pedal in terms of me talking a little bit more, and then when to let them talk too. So the timing of it is huge. After a game and they've struck out 4 times, I'm not talking much. There's nothing I can tell a guy that's 0 for 4 or 4 punches, because I've done it. Others on this call have done it too, that you don't really want my opinion at that time. You just need a vent session. And so I'll just have my phone on mute, and I'm just sitting there and he's airing it out. And at the end of the hour, he's like, oh, Kev, thank you so much for that. So I think the feel is a huge part in that communication. So sometimes you talk more, sometimes you talk less.
And what's wonderful is now you have a chance to listen to 3 other world-class speakers, and 4, in fact. And it's an honor to have you here. There'll be some questions for you at the end. I truly appreciate it, brother. I'm honored to have you here. We'll come back to you. I do want to begin to welcome in my next guest. My next panelist is someone who, when I think about introducing, I think about a concept that I talk with my students about, which is we talk a lot about the difference between good to great, but sometimes it's difficult for young people and older people to discern the difference between great and world class. And sometimes you have trouble finding out who, in fact, is world class at their job because they're not yet famous, or maybe they'll never be famous. People on this call, I'm confident, are world class, even though not everyone knows their name. And those are some of the thoughts I have when I think of Eric Holtz. He's authentic. He's who he is, and he may go off script here today. That's one of the things I love about him. But I want to give you your 3 minutes, followed by some questions. If you have a question for Eric that you want to say verbally, type in the word Eric at any time. You could also type a question. My good friend Eric Holtz.
Joe, thanks for having me. This is a first for me, as you know, doing a Zoom broadcast. For me, I think everybody here is obviously dealing with something for the first time in our lives. This pandemic is biblical. It's unprecedented. And from dealing with the day-to-day of keeping the people that look up to us calm, sane, how do we help them through these times? How do we continue to motivate the people around us by keeping them calm, helping them stay prepared, both physically, mentally, emotionally? What can we do as leaders. I coach 8-year-old kids, and if people don't know, I am the Olympic coach for the Israel national team. I have a lot of big leaguers that we deal with, and these guys are reaching out to me because they're nervous, they're scared. The Olympics were postponed yesterday, and guys are reaching out. What can we do to keep the normalcy through this time? So what I've dealt with a lot of my athletes, both boys and girls, and dealing with adults as well, is trying to keep people on a normal daily routine. People aren't allowed to go to school, not allowed to go to work. What are we doing to get through the day? And I think no different than normal lives pre 2 weeks ago, we need to figure out what types of schedules we need to keep these kids and adults on. I have to set goals and plans daily. I have to get up. I have to shower. I have to eat my breakfast. I'm going to get my workout. I'm going to go read a book and get my schoolwork in. I may want to meditate or do some reading. What is real nice for these kids today, which I didn't have growing up, is we have YouTube. We have game footage. I can Google a game back from the 70s or 80s and watch how guys were preparing. What was their approach at the plate? What are they doing? Because right now, there is no normal. We're dealing with, like I said, unprecedented stuff that has gone on in this country. A lot of people are sick. A lot of people are scared. And we have to try to keep this as normal as possible while dealing with the new normal. Nobody knows what's going on today, tomorrow, or next week. We know that everybody's home from now. What can we do to help the people around us? As a baseball coach, we use a term all the time that they threw us a curveball. And there may not always be great weather, perfect weather. An umpire may make a bad call. How do we deal with that? That's kind of what is going to define us and how we're able to move on through this. What can we do to help others that look up to us on a daily to help them get through this hard time? And for me, like I said, it's pointing these people into different locations, different directions, whether it's YouTube or video chat like we're doing now, texting my players, hey, how you guys doing? Is there anything I can do for you? Do you need anything from me at this point? I had a guy call me today, a pitcher who pitched in the big leagues and playing for Team Israel, and basically said he just needed to hear my voice and needed a virtual hug. And everybody's kind of going through a tough time right now. For me, it's trying to keep as normal as possible. Staying on routine, finding something to motivate us every day. And instead of saying, I don't have a gym to go to, find something in your garage, man. Pick up a bucket, lift it up 5 or 10 times. Do one-legged squats with one of your legs on the couch while you're watching the news in the morning. For me, as a coach and a motivator, I think the one thing that I don't ever want to hear is I can't. What I want to know is, don't tell me the 99 reasons this didn't work. Tell me the one thing that you were able to do to get the shit done. That's what I want to know as a coach and a motivator. And I'm here to help everybody through this as well, because this is unprecedented stuff, Joe.
Eric, you said 2 words not long ago that really changed my perspective. Why wait? We're given one life. Why wait? And yet the entire world is thrown into a fit of waiting. How do you balance it?
Well, I mean, right now, we're waiting because it's unknown, right? What's going on, like I said, it's biblical stuff. There's nobody that can say it's going to be this or it's going to be that. My why wait is just in life in general. If there's something that I want to do that's not going to hurt anybody else, I'm not going to wait ever. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to listen to everything that everyone's saying about, not going outside and not social distancing. No, I'm going to be a little bit smarter at this point. But in general, life is good. We're going to get through this together. We're all going to make it to the other side. We just got to be a lot smarter about how we do that for now, and continue to keep the people that are important to us and close to us comfortable in this uncomfortable time.
You can put your social handle in if you're waiting and you're going to not ask a question. But Andy taps into something that I asked you the other day, Eric. Your team qualified for the Olympics, and to put it mildly, Israel has not had a rich baseball history. You and your brethren have done something unprecedented, and then you get a call that says the Olympics is out. Andy wants to know, how are you creating a sense of calm? Is that the way you approach it? And even in those moments, learning that the Olympics are not happening right now.
So, it's a great question. For me, obviously the disappointment is great. We did things last summer that nobody gave us a shot to do. We were called the Jamaican bobsled team, and all we did was go 17-4. And here we are, one of 6 teams that's going to be going to the Olympics. And such a baseball nut like myself understands that there is more important things than baseball right now. And the safety and health of every athlete and their families and everyone else that comes into contact is just so much more important. Put aside, we don't know when this is going to be lifted, Joe. When are the athletes going to be able to train again? The people, I feel bad. Yeah, I feel bad for the athletes, but it's not being canceled. It's being postponed. They'll have another opportunity. We had a group chat with the team today. Just again, reiterated, I want everybody to be safe and healthy. And when we're out on the other side, we'll celebrate again together. But tremendous disappointment on one hand. The other hand is everybody's got to stay safe through this time.
Final question for now until the end, John Gold.
Eric, thanks for participating in this, and Joe, and thanks for putting this together. This is absolutely awesome and helps keep us all connected. Eric, I have a question regarding those conversations you're having with some of your players.
Sure.
How are you finding the balance between providing that empathy and validation of those emotions while also making sure that we're still moving forward and motivating your guys?
So the empathy obviously, is huge because a lot of these kids are nervous. They're watching TV and they're hearing their parents talking in the other room. But on the other side, John, if I just sit, and Joe, I apologize for cursing. I apologize up front. But if I sit in my own shit and I don't do anything about it, you're not going to get out of it, man.
Right.
Get up. Motivate yourself to get better every day with whatever I have available to me. I've got to do something to motivate myself to not sit on the couch and not watch 10 hours of Netflix and not play 8 hours of video games. What can I do to be better? Whether it's educationally, physically, mentally, or emotionally, what can I do while juggling their feelings? Yes, I'm nervous. Yes, I'm scared. And I get it, and I'm here for them. At the same time, you got to get up and do something about it.
Beautifully said. Absolutely love it. Eric, thanks for being here. There's going to be some questions at the end, I'm sure, because someone on the call is probably dealing with something, and they now have a feel for your personality, brother. So we'll catch back with you in a moment or two, my man.
You got it.
Our next guest panelist said yes. I've noticed he's taken a little bit of a break from social media. I don't know if he's going to admit that on the air, but if you have something yellow nearby, you do want to wave it around a little bit. This is a guest who, let me make sure I got this right. If everyone is doing it, do the opposite. And I'm going to ask Jesse to unmute himself as I give the rest of this intro. He says on social media he owns 7 tuxedos. I believe it's closer to 9. I have an affinity for the color yellow, but the truth is Jesse's book is behind me. You can see it. Find your yellow tux. Let me welcome into the show Jesse Cole.
Pumped to be with you, Joe. Thanks for putting this together. Yeah, I mean, long story short, 5 years ago I was sleeping on an airbed. My wife and I had to sell our house. We had to empty our savings account just to try to make ends meet here with a baseball team in Savannah, Georgia. And we were lucky to get dramatically crazy, dramatically different, but mostly care for our people, care for our fans, and put them first. And now after selling 2 tickets, we've been fortunate to sell out every game. And we have a great group of people. I know Phil, who's with us today, he's coming on to coach this summer with us. Very excited to have him as well. But yeah, I mean, you said 3 minutes. What can we do? What can I do to help this audience and share? And, you know, something that we share with our team, we have a fans first playbook. You know, I know we have a lot of coaches here. You know, do you have a playbook about your culture, your core beliefs, what you stand for? Very few teams have that. And so we've built a fans first playbook, and we'll spend a day to 2 days with all of our players before they even get a uniform going through that. And one of the things in our fans first playbook is we share as the 3 loves. And that's what makes up part of what makes up fans first entertainment. And that is to love our customers more than we love our product, to love our people, our team, even more than we love our customers, and then to love ourselves. And the way we actually produce our experience is we map every single moment. We've had to because we were failing. We map the moments for our fans when they get in, from seeing parking penguins to having our players greeting them to having senior citizen dance teams. I mean, it's a circus how we map how our fans show up to the game. But we also map our team the first day they show up. For the first day, their interns show up. What happens? You know, from we have their full breakfast. We have pictures of them. We have a playbook for them. We really map that. And so now, obviously, what's going on for your teams, your people, the people that you work for, how are you mapping the experience being remotely? So that's something that we think about. We're having lunches together every day remote. We're mapping what that day looks like for our people. But the thing that I think that might help most relevance here is how do you map the experience for yourself? How do you love yourself right now? This is where I failed a few years ago. Every morning I'd wake up, I'd get on my phone, I'd go through my emails, I'd watch the news, I'd see what was going on, and I had very little purpose. And then I read the book Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and that really made a huge impact on me. He almost died twice, once by a car accident and once almost through depression and almost committing suicide. And he found the lifesavers. And the acronym, I think, is silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And I started that in 2015. I started going through what would my morning look like on purpose. And so my quick 3 minute I'll get through here is win the morning, win the day. So in 2015, I started evolving. What would my morning look like on purpose? And it's changed my life. And I've evolved it. So what I do now every morning, first thing I do is I write a thank you letter. I've been doing that since 2015. It's changed my life. It's called the Thank You Experiment. And I choose someone that's made an impact in my life. And it's from coaches to authors to teachers to peers to anybody. I've written over 1,500. That's the first thing I start my day with, recognition. The next thing I do is I read. I do about 2 chapters. I read 2 chapters every morning of a book that I'm reading, mostly business, because I'm fascinated by that. And then I exercise, get my workout in while listening to a podcast. And then I write. For me, I write in a journal, ideas, and then I have actually an idea book that I write 10 ideas every single day. Most of them are terrible. A lot of them, like the living piñata, where we put an intern in a mascot costume and have fans actually hit them while they throw candy. Some don't actually work that well, but a lot of them are a lot of fun. And that's my morning. And so after that, I'm ready to go. I have a 3-hour rule. I don't look at social media or email until 3 hours after I've woken up. So that's at 8 o'clock for me because I wake up at 5. And by the time I'm with my people, I am the best for my people. And that's my goal. I want to be there and be 100% there to listen, like Kevin talked about, to inspire, to motivate. And now our whole team, all millennials, and that's, we have 10 full-time for the Savannah Bananas. They write thank you letters every day. They do videos, 1 fan a day. They do a selfie video to people. And now they read every day. And so we have a better book club. We pay our people to read. We do book clubs. They do a book report on it, and we're trying to help our people grow. So that was a lot in a second, but I was just trying to give you guys a little bit that's really helped our team. The 3 loves. Love your whoever you serve, whether it's your customers, whether it's your I don't know, it's faculty. A lot of school, it's different. You don't really have customers, but love your customers more than you love your product. Love your people, your team more than you love your customers, and then love yourself. Give yourself oxygen first. Right now, it's very tough. We're in news all day long. We're looking at this stuff. It's frustrating us. It's challenging us. Get yourself in a good spot, and it's changed my life more than anything. So that's how we've been able to deliver this experience, by everyone doing this type of personal care and then a lot of love. And we talk about love. We talk about it every day. So that's it. Didn't go too crazy. Didn't go different for you, Joe. Got real.
Now that's just unbelievable stuff. I'm gonna just throw a term out there that's termed wait time. WAIT. It's one of the worst things we as teachers do. We want to fill the air, and I need people to have 10 seconds, 20 seconds to pause on what we just heard. Then their questions will come out because that was unbelievable. So if you're a teacher, you got to wait once in a while. You can't be the victim and say, nobody has questions. You got to let it marinate for a second because that was unbelievable. I just want to just say before I go to the questions, Jesse, we do have customers as teachers, but not that many teachers think of it that way. The way to have customers is to serve your students more than your material. And no one wants to admit that. You know, my material, I got to get through it. I got to get through it by June. I got to get through it. And meanwhile, Sheila's falling behind, but she's got to catch up. It's complicated. But I want to go to the questions because that's why you're here. Question comes in from Scott. Jesse, what do you mean by map it? Is it a moment-by-moment script? Is it a master plan? I think everyone can zone in on this. Mapping sounds like a terrible thing, but the way you've done it, it's freeing.
Yeah, we map the moments. Moments matter, meaning create moments that show people that they matter, and that'll give you deeper meaning. And so we map literally. The idea when a fan buys a ticket from us on our website, they get an email with me. It says, congrats, you just made the best decision of your day. Right now, as your ticket order came on, a high priority siren went off in our stadium. Our Bananiacs ran to the ticket laboratory, produced your tickets. A banana nana came out and slowly picked your tickets, placed them on a silk pillow, raised your tickets to the air. We sang Na Savania, and we go through the actual ridiculous. It goes on for a while. Then they get a thank you call from everyone on our staff. Anyone who buys a ticket or merchandise gets a thank you call. Then we send a playlist of music for them to listen to on the way to the ballpark. And then they see our parking penguins parking their car. Everything is mapped. The players are there to greet them. We have a professional high fiver who's 6 years old, who's actually paid to high five fans. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. We break every child labor law there is by doing this, but it's okay. It's mapped. Even our bathrooms are mapped. Our biggest rival is Making Bacon. So, of course, we have Making Bacon urinal cakes, so our fans are actually pissing on our rival every day in the men's room. All right, we are pretty ridiculous on how we map it. But in a fun way, for your staff, for your people, for your team, the practices. You know, what happens when they first show up? Not just the script of like, all right, they're going to warm up, we're going to do stretch, I might play ball, but like, what are those special moments? What are those things that you could think about? I just remember just doing some really fun things when I was in Little League, and we made practice fun for the coaches here. When they leave, what's the last impression? The last impression leaves a lasting impression. For us, at the end of our games, you know, we have our pep band playing. We have free s'mores giving out. We actually wash a few cars. We have a mobile car wash. Well, fans don't even know it. They get to their car and their car was washed. It's those type of things that make a big experience. So, script it from first impression to during to last impression, whether it's students, whether it's faculty, whether it's athletes. What would be that perfect experience? And the way we do it is we eliminate the friction. So whatever the friction points you would have, eliminate those. That's kind of a starting point for us.
It's too good. It's too good. There's so much there. I just want to say that if you're a business owner, you can imagine how that would apply. If you're a classroom teacher, you can imagine how that would apply, and so much more. Kevin Martins asks, Coach, you referred to putting people first, which resonated with him and many of us. What does that look like in the tense moments? And I believe what he's getting at is it's always great to say people first, people first, people first, and then, oh, it's time to win the game. It's time to close the deal. How do you and your team deliver that message that people first, no matter whether it's tense or placid?
Well, I appreciate the reference to a coach. I haven't been called a coach since I coached with Kevin back in 2007. I'm just a crazy guy in a yellow tuxedo. But, you know, Tyler Gillum, our head coach, who's Phil's going to be working with, in regards to tense moments, and if that's referring to on the field, what's unbelievable, and we go by the whale done philosophy from Ken Blanchard. The way they train the whales at SeaWorld is when they did something great, they would give them food. When they do something wrong, they don't actually just go negative and go right at them right at that moment. And I've never seen Tyler Gillum yell, scream, cuss at our players. And what's crazy, it is all focused for our players on having fun and creating fun for the fans. And when they have fun, they play better. So the tense moments, I haven't seen that. We've had bad games, we've had tough times, but hey, he never actually reacts. Everyone feeds off your coach. They feed off how they are. From a leadership standpoint, today our president was a little down. I said, hey, everyone's mirroring that off you. You got to show up with energy. What are you bringing? So it's a tough question for me to answer, just like failure, because we look right past that. Failure is discovery, tense moments. What are you learning? Move forward.
I love that. My final guest, Laura, will speak more to that, I know, because she has this beautiful balance between intensity and fun. So I know we'll get to her. A final question for Jesse right now is from Sandro. He loves that you start with gratitude. He's asking, you've been doing it since 2015. Are you now in a place where it's like it's rote, it's manufactured and not authentic, or are you still living in that authenticity?
Great question. And the answer is no. I mean, obviously 1,500 thank you letters or whatever it is now, because every day that's the lens that I look at. So I look at I go through the day, who can I thank today? Who needs extra recognition today? And there's always somebody. And so for me, it's kind of a challenge. Like if at the end of the day, I haven't thought of that, then I need to think, all right, who is someone that could use that extra thank you, encouragement, maybe someone in my past that made an impact. So when you take that lens every day, it's amazing how you start having gratitude for everything. And that's been a game changer for my life, my wife's life, and our whole team's life.
Jesse, can't thank you enough. I'm sure there's going to be a few questions at the end. I do want to take a brief pause and say, when I envisioned this event, this is pretty much exactly how I hoped it would go. Just unbelievable value from people. I didn't promise you a perfect summit. I didn't know that, muting people was part of the job of the moderator, and not to do it disrespectfully, just for background noise. We're all going through so much. But I didn't know also how much our panelists would bring stuff to the table here at this level, when we could be doing anything else. And the quote that I use as the framing is, every gathering is an opportunity to practice the world that we wish existed. It's a quote from Priya Parker, and what a world we're in. But a moment like this, 60 minutes, I want to welcome in Phil Schallenberger with 2 L's. Don't get that wrong if you're corresponding with him in email. It'll be bounced around. Phil's in his 4th year at Cairn University in Pennsylvania. He just had it ripped away from him, another person dealing with adversity. He's the head coach, and I know there's probably some Cairn athletes listening, so I don't mean this disrespectfully, but Phil is managed as a recruiting coordinator and the head coach to bring in athletes that fit his system and his culture, and he's adjusted with theirs. He's also the athletic fundraising coordinator. You can imagine what skill set that takes from a sales perspective, from a messaging perspective. I want to welcome in Phil Schallenberger. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for having me on. And Jesse, man, listening to you got me more pumped to be with you guys this summer. But really hope one of the expectations isn't to be a great dancer, because I'm not sure I got that yet. So maybe you guys can teach me a few things when I'm there. But yeah, this is just been an awesome experience, listening and learning from all of you. And it kind of seems like a common theme coming up with a lot of us, and the way you guys care for people. And just getting a lot of experience outside of even the realm that people working currently. I know Kevin mentioned about business books, and for me, my first year, all I listened to was an entrepreneurial podcast that helped me become a better coach, and kind of looking at the head coach position as more of a CEO. And I think all 3 of our assistant coaches are on here, and a couple of players, and I'm fortunate to have tremendous assistant coaches that help me do a lot of the day-to-day stuff, so that way I can focus on bigger picture stuff. And for us, I just want to talk a little bit about building more than just a team, and I think that can go across the board, not just with sports, but for us here at Cairn, it's about building a team. And if it's about building more than a team, then and it's just about winning, then this season had been lost for a lot of college coaches. Our season was ripped away. We're in the midst of our spring break trip. We took a bus down to Florida, and we find out Thursday that our season's basically postponed and probably going to be canceled. I still remember that moment, sitting in the lobby and having to tell our team that, hey, guys, we're probably not going to have a season the rest of this way, and that includes the 2 games we were supposed to play the next day. And initially, there's a lot of questions with players. I think it was the most any questions that have been asked in a meeting. But at the same time, our program is about building people. And so what better opportunity do we have to build people than right now? Coach Holtz talked about this a little bit, is facing adversity. And our team's going through that right now. We have guys on the other side of the country, in California and Arizona, that are waking up at 5 a.m. to take online classes because they have an 8 a.m. class Eastern time. And that's been a challenge for a lot of them. But at the same time, for us, like this season would have been a loss if it was just about winning games. We played 15 games. We were 5-9, and our season was stripped away. But the bus ride home from Florida, we had 18 hours on a bus from Florida to PA. You would have thought that we just finished winning a national championship with how excited our guys were to have that 18 hours to spend with each other. So much so that our assistant coaches can attest to this. The bus driver pulled over to get gas. I don't think you have to force people to get off the bus when you get gas, but he made the whole team get off the bus to get gas so he could have a little bit of break from the team. But for us, I think the reason we're able to do that is because we want to create a safe environment for our guys to fail and also give us input. Last year, there was a team we were playing. It was the first time that we have ever made the playoffs in school history, and it was a pretty important game for us to beat a team that we should have beat. We just beat them by 15 runs the day before. And we actually ended up losing the game on a walk-off infield ground ball. And afterwards, we had a lefty pitching. He came up to me. He was a senior at the time, and he said, "Hey, Coach, did you think about just letting me try to pick this guy off at first base before you intentionally walked him to get the bases loaded so it was a forced play everywhere?" And it kind of dawned me. It was like within 5 minutes of losing the baseball game, and it just kind of hit me where I had to kind of catch myself from getting angry for him questioning our decisions to being like, man, you know what? Like, you're right. Because he set the school record for picking people off. And as a coach, that's not the first thing that comes to mind when you're in a situation like that. Hey, let's pick this guy off. That's normally not something that comes up for those of you that are coaches. But when he said that, I was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And I think that's about creating a safe environment where he felt comfortable coming up to me within minutes of losing a pretty important conference game. And so allowing us to give them that freedom to do that. Kind of similar to what Jesse was saying with Savannah, like we try to have a fun environment at practice. And I think this is one thing I'm still working through is how do you focus on the details while also creating a fun atmosphere? And we're kind of learning how to balance that through this time. But for us, it's building more than a team is truly caring about our people. And the one thing that I really tried to focus on this year was not letting anyone go unnoticed. There's been multiple times this year where we had guys go through a lot. One of our players' brothers actually lost his brother right before our spring break trip, and just a lot of challenging things. And his brother was battling cancer. There was times at practice where you could tell he was a little bit down because of what he was dealing with. And the one thing that I've tried to learn this year is if you even notice somebody that's not quite right or their mood isn't the same, it's just going up and putting your arm around and just asking them how they're doing. And they may not want to talk to you at that moment, but it's just making sure that they know that somebody's there to care for them. And that's half the battle. And for us during this time is even more important to let our players know that we're there for them. But that goes with not just a baseball team, but also with anything that you're doing is making sure your people truly care for them. So I know it's a lot to unpack, but at the same time, man, it's just, for me, building more than a team is so important for us. And this season is not a waste because of that, because we do focus on the relationships and how we're building people.
Wow. While you come up with questions and thoughts on that, I do want to say often when I hear someone give a message like that, it's easy for people to say, well, they must not care about winning. And I saw firsthand how you go about your business. I can't believe I got the press pass that day. But you also shattered numerous, like dozens of school records in the last 4 years. And I won't ask you to brag about them because I know that's not your style. But the program has gone from near extinction to thriving. And, it's a beautiful campus, but it's not some of the campuses some of the people on the call have seen. And you've managed to do that. So it's just an incredible thing. The 50 people listening can learn a lot from you and everyone else. A couple of quick questions. I love the word feedback so much. Andy Harris has a podcast called The Mind Leads Performance. And this is a topic he's fascinated with. How do you create a safe environment? I didn't say soft, a safe environment for feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it goes back to the story I told after we lost that game. And Joey's on this call, one of our assistants, and we kind of laugh. We've had a great relationship, but at the same time, he's somebody, he challenges me every day. He pushes me to be better. He doesn't question my decisions just to question them, but he questions them because he wants to make us better. And for me, there are times, and Joey will be the first to say this, that I do get offended by that, where I'm like, hey, sometimes I just need you to support me. But then kind of thinking about it a little bit more, where if somebody's not questioning or challenging me to make me better, then we're not making the best decision that we can as a group. And sometimes I take his advice and sometimes I don't. And he's okay with that. He's been here with me since day one. and he's allowed us to do that. But for us, it's when people try to give input, is not being offended by that input, even if it's against what you believe at that moment. And I think that's been a huge thing that I'm learning as a head coach, is being able to embrace that feedback. I might not always use it, but at the same time, allowing our players, and some coaches may frown upon this, but like our players give us feedback. We changed our bunt coverages my second year because of what players told us that they thought worked better. And we worked on it in practice, and it did work better. It was something that was better for us. And so for us, it's like allowing our players to have that feedback, because if they don't, they're never going to bring maybe some great ideas that we've never thought of because of that.
It takes a lot of courage and conviction to be able to do that. Matt asks, he's from Kenton, Ohio, are you seeing more in your athletes that they love to win more than they hate to lose? And he wants to know, as a result, what are some ways that you can make winning fun? I wonder if you see it that way.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think that we have. I was just reading. It's funny. I was just reading a book today about this, and it was talking about hating to lose more than you love to win. But for me, like I think that's true. But what the books kind of talked about was being okay and finding the joy in the challenges and not hating it so much, but rather finding the joy in those losses. Or how are you learning from that? Like, what are you learning to become better? And so for us, like, it's tough because we don't find our identity in wins and losses. And so for our program, we preach that. And so it was me as a coach, if I'm being vividly upset about losing, then at the same time, they're seeing a coach that's preaching, we don't find our identity in the game of baseball and our wins and losses and the outcome. And they're seeing me react negatively every time we lose, then it's really not truly helping our players. Because for most of our players, after 4 years, they're going to be done playing baseball. And I know for me as a senior year in college, when that baseball was stripped away from me, when I no longer was a player, got injured right after trying out for a couple teams, and when that baseball was no longer there, man, I was devastated for a really long time, and I just didn't have a purpose. And that's what we're trying to help our players with, is not focus so much on those wins and losses, but rather find their identity in something bigger than that, but while still trying to become better at what they're called to do right now.
And in that stream, I'm going to ask you to do something tough and a real short answer here, but Dave asked a really important question, and we'll have time at the end before we get to Laura, after we get to Laura. Dave asks, how are you helping seniors who will never play again get through this?
Yeah, so we're in an interesting phase in our program right now. We only had 2 seniors, and one of them was an outfielder senior, and the other one was our starting shortstop, who was actually married and has a second kid on the way. So with that being said, their perspective is a little bit different here. His perspective now is like, hey, like he actually has to have another year of school to graduate, so he could play if he wants to. But with them granting that extra year eligibility, but at the same time, he knows that there's more important things than just the baseball field, and he's thinking about his family. So he's a little bit different scenario. Not many college coaches are dealing with that, but he's a tremendous person. And the other one, it's just, I think, just making sure they understand that the baseball isn't the identity. Well, while you're missing half of your season, they got to impact so many people during their time here, and not to lose sight of that. Their ability to impact their younger guys is going to live with this team for the rest of the time this team is existing. And we talk about having a brotherhood here, and we truly mean it. It's not just a saying where we challenge each other, but at the same time, once you're a part of this family, this brotherhood, you're always a part of it. And so we've had more alumni this year come and talk to our team before games, and we've only played 15 games this year because they're always going to be a part of this family. And they know that too. And just today, texting all of our players, they know that they're a part of this family from now until they're 50 or beyond, whatever that is they're always going to be a part of Cairn baseball. And I think that eases the pain a little bit, where they don't feel like they're separated from it. They're still a part of this no matter what moving forward.
It's incredible, Phil. Thank you so much. There's a couple of questions at the end we'll get back to. Thank you for that. Eric, our last guest has been on the Today Show. Our last guest has sweated on the camera as she ran stadium steps. Our last guest told me, hey, I didn't really look at the itinerary because when you asked, I said yes. I almost fainted with that generosity. She's authentic. She talks to business owners. She talks to teams. She talks about the message of being limitless. My last guest is Laura Gassner-Otting. Laura, welcome to the summit.
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, thanks for outing me that I came completely unprepared. I had a sense that I was going to go last, and I figured it didn't make any sense for me to come with a specific script already in mind because there's so many great people here that are covering so many amazing things that I didn't want to repeat anything that was already said. So I'd like to maybe build upon a little bit of what I've heard today. So I live in Boston, which is right across the river from Cambridge, home of Harvard. I did not go to Harvard. I went to University of Texas. But there's some really smart thinking that has come out of Harvard around this idea of your fundamental state of leadership. And the fundamental state of leadership is who you are when you're at your very best. So think about those moments when everything that you're good at doing is being called upon to solve a problem at hand. And that is a problem you actually care about. And you're being rewarded for that, solving that problem in some way that is interesting and compelling to you, whether it's financial or karmically interesting to you. And you can just crush it. You can jump over mountains. You can see through walls. You can walk through fire. That's you and your fundamental state of leadership. That's you when you're at your very, very best. And when I was in the process of writing the book Limitless, I thought I got to a point that it was done. I sent my draft to a woman that I didn't really know that well, who was the first female F-14 fighter pilot in the Navy. And she sent it back to me in about 3 days and said, can we talk about your book? And I thought she was going to give me praise, right? Because, I'm an idiot. And what she gave me was, she basically handed me my ass in the nicest possible way. And I'm not going to curse because I don't think I'm supposed to, but you can put the words in yourself. She said, Laura, you're really effing smart. And this book is really effing good, but you're too effing smart for it just to be really effing good. You need to make it really effing great. And then I'm going to blurb the S out of it. Go do it. She said, do we have any veterans on the call? Okay. She said, there's a term that we talk about in the military that's called be worth the trip. If somebody goes down on the field in battle, you don't just leave him or her there. You go back for them, right? So the idea is that if you're going to put your brothers and sisters in harm's way to go back into battle and get your butt out of there, you better be worth the trip. And what she was saying to me is, you better be worth the trip. If someone's going to pick up this book, if someone's going to listen to you, if they're going to read what you are doing, if they're going to think about your ideas, be worth the trip. And so how do I get 1% better? How am I trying to get 1% better right now? Is I'm not trying to think about what I am. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I make my living getting on stages and traveling all around the country, and my business is gone right now. I don't think about what I am like your baseball players. I think about how I am, who I want to be every single day, and who I am in that fundamental state of leadership. So that's how I get 1% better. I try every single day to the people I love and the causes I hold dear to be worth the trip. There's my 3 minutes.
Damn. I want to stick around after 6 o'clock to get the unedited version on tape of that. Eric will appreciate the unedited version. That's a great story. I actually got chills, and I thought about the scene from Saving Private Ryan. And this might be a spoiler, but at this point, you have to have seen that movie. And he says, earn this. And I think that's in the mix here. We're going to have some questions for you, no doubt, Laura, but you're not fooling anybody. I know you were prepared. And honestly, I was touched that you said, if I asked, you're on. So I think as we wind down here, you talk about 51 to 58 people here today, could be doing anything else in the world. I don't want time to expire without me thanking everybody. Laura, you said your business is suffering. I haven't seen you whine. I haven't seen you complain. And is it just because you wrote a book, Limitless, you have an accountability to yourself, or how have you approached that?
Well, here's my thinking. My thinking is that there are two different kinds of money. There's current money and there's future money. And I could, I spent the winter trying to put together this beautiful online course. It is so gorgeous. It is so pretty. I figured out how to do all the filming and all the graphic design and the workbook, and it's amazing. And I can't release it now and sell it because I'll look like a vampire, right? It's really frustrating. So here's my thinking. instead of putting that course out and asking people to pay for it, I'm just going to put it out for free for the whole month of April, or maybe the whole month of May, because people are suffering. Everybody is suffering. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And my thinking is, I'm going to put it out now, because if I try to sell it now for current money, there's not a lot of current money out there. But if I put it out right now and I have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people take it for free and become champions and ambassadors of it, then when the world goes back to whatever it's going to go back to, I'm going to have so many people out there talking about how I was in service to them with the thing that I know how to do right now, that there'll be future money. And I think that future money beats current money every day of the week. So yeah, does it suck that every one of my events for the spring and the summer got canceled or postponed? Yeah. But the world's going to exist after. The world existed before, it's going to exist after. And the people who will do well after are the ones who think about, what is the gift that you have? What is the thing that you can do to be of service to somebody else? And put that out there in the world, because that's all we can do right now, is just to be of service to other people.
Wow. There's a lot there. It's so wonderful. If there's a link that you can post afterwards or send to me that I can send to the mailing list, that'd be phenomenal. A must follow on Insta, which I'm putting in. Quick question from Phil. What's the best story you have that exemplifies being worth the trip? I love that question. Worth the trip. What comes to mind in terms of an anecdote you've seen?
Oh, that's such a great question. I've never been asked that question before. I could answer for you the times in my life when there have been moments where I've seen people rise to the occasion, but I think we've heard these things on the call right now. I mean, listening to the coaches talk about thinking about their players and reminding them that they're not their identity. They're not being a baseball player. They are all the other parts of who they are, and how then they show up for that. The story we just heard about the player who has, a kid and another kid on the way, who's showing up for his family and who has perspective. I think that guy's being worth the trip to his family. So I think that there are, huge, large stories that we can talk about, heroes that are, running into burning buildings. But I think it really does come down to the everyday, the way that we're showing up, the way that when we're all in captivity in our homes, we don't yell at our spouses when we know they're just having a hard time too, or how, we're looking at my high school junior who, is not going to prom this year and is really sad, right? It's like letting them have that moment and living in that. I think that's really where it's not the big, bright, fancy headline moments. It's really every single day that we prove that we're worth the trip.
I want to go to Pasquale, his question, but I also want to unmute the guests today. I want to offer something unique. Kevin, Eric, Jesse, Phil, and Laura, if you have a question for each other, because you don't often get to rub elbows in these circles with speakers and authors, so I want to kind of close with that. But Pasquale's question, Laura, is you mentioned being at your absolute best. Well, it's not always the case, right? So what do you do, and how do you press on when you don't feel that way?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of dodge this question a little bit, because I think this is what happens when we're not at our absolute best. Like, think about Serena Williams. She goes out there and like 95% of the stuff she does on the court is amazing. And then 5% of it maybe could have gone better. She doesn't go into practice the next day and just work on the 5%. And maybe I wish there was a baseball analogy that I could use, but I don't. I would seem like a fraud if I tried to do that with this audience, so I'm not going to. But if Serena Williams spent practice after practice after practice working on just the 5%, then she'd never groove the pattern of the 95%. And so I would tell you, don't spend so much time focusing on the what did I do wrong. Focus on the what did I do right, and practice that over and over and over, because that's how you groove the pattern and make sure that when you show up tomorrow, you didn't just get lucky with that 95%. You actually did it on purpose.
This is the 6 o'clock mark, which says no demerits will be given if you leave, because I promised you efficiency and bell-to-bell value. I'm going to stay on for a few more moments for sure, but no hard feelings if someone has to go. Are there anyone in the panel, Kevin, Eric, Jesse, Phil, or Laura, who had a question or a comment for each other?
I got one for Jesse.
Jesse, you still with us, brother?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So we're not going to go through the backstory. Jesse did mention it, that he and I were together on the same coaching staff in 2007 in the Cape Cod League, Laura, Katuitt Kettleers. So the beautiful town of Katuitt. But I got a question for you that a lot of on the line might want to know. You recently took all the sponsors down off your outfield wall. No advertising in your stadium. Answer yourself, my man.
What do you stand for? And so for us, we stand for the fans. We stand for the fan experience. And so we've tried to eliminate everything that takes away from the fan experience. And we don't believe anyone comes to a ballpark to be advertised to be sold, to be promoted. We want them to have the best possible experience. That's why we made every ticket all-inclusive. That's why we make it nonstop entertainment with dancing players and fun. That's why we give all of our free shipping. That's why we eliminate all ticket fees. That's why we eliminate all that. Again, we try to put ourselves in our customers' shoes. And I don't like being advertised to. And Netflix is doing pretty well. And I think everyone skips through the ads on YouTube. So it's where are we going? And we're eliminating short-term profits for long-term fans. And so it's very clear what we stand for. And I think it brought our staff even closer together. And fortunately, people reached out from all over and said, I'm buying this hat, I'm buying this shirt because of who you guys are. And we're big Bananas fans. So it doesn't make immediate sense. But for us, it does. And that's how we're going to try to build our brand. So
totally resonates with Laura's point. Any other questions from panelist to panelist?
I already got to ask my question, so.
What's that, Phil?
I said I got to ask my question already, so I'll let the others talk.
Well, then our final question of the day will go to one of the guests here, the audience members. Some thanks pouring in, which is so nice. I had a vision to put it together. I gave it a shot, and it worked. Let's go to final question from James is to you, Laura. Would you say that the last bit you talked about, the last segment, is a form of delayed gratification? Telling yourself, hey, long-term, this will be better for me. It kind of resonates and ties everything up into a nice bow. That question comes in from James to Laura.
I would say that if delayed gratification is the reason that you want to do it, that's awesome. For me, there is no better feeling than being of service to somebody else. I think that for people who feel like you're not sure what's happening, you are uncertain footing right now, you know, there's nothing else that you can control in the world right now. The one thing that you can control is how you give of yourself to somebody else. So for me, there's a ton of current gratification in the service to others right now. But like, don't be fooled. There's also a huge amount of strategy too, because I know that future money is going to be worth more than current money. So I get the, you know, emotional you know, fulfillment, you know, I get to fill my emotional bank right now, but I also know that it's going to, you know, fill my actual bank later. So, you know, it's maybe it's delayed gratification, but I think there's different types of gratification that I'm getting from it.
Awesome. Is there anyone on the chat? We still have 45 people left. Is there anyone that wants to unmute themselves and jump in? We are in our closing moments. Let me pause and give some wait time. All right. Well, with that, then, Eric's handle is Schallenberger. Give your handle if you can in the chat for everyone, and type them in as well. I put them in. Personal thanks. I want to go to my panelist, Kevin. We've been together a long time, and I think you touched on more than just baseball as usual, my friend. So a special thanks to you being here, brother.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Eric Holtz is. I got a lot I could say. We're going to keep those stories off air. Eric, man, thank you for handling the disappointment of postponement, not cancellation, with such class. I really appreciate everything you poured out today, man. That may be the first time I ever muted him by accident. Phil Schallenberger, thank you so much for being here, my friend. It means a lot. The first time I saw you, you were taking copious notes at a conference, and I knew you were a lifelong learner then.
No, thanks for having me, Joe. I think I learned more than probably what I gave out in this Zoom call, but I appreciate you having me. This was awesome.
Jesse Cole, when this call is over, how much longer can we count on you being in that tux?
Probably another 15 to 26 minutes.
All right. I'd love to hear that. Valhalla people will know you. Your voice reminds me of Rich Austin, someone we're close to. We'll put that in for posterity. But I know you had a million places you could have been, and you were here, so it means an awful lot, Jess.
Love being with you guys. Thank you, Joe.
And Laura, LGO, at Hey LGO. The book is limitless. I know you won't stop. You haven't yet since I met you, and it means so much that you took this. You were on social media this morning, I think at 9 a.m. Eastern, and you're still going. So hopefully it's beverage time, but I just want to say thank you so much. I promised people this would be the best Zoom call they were on all week. I don't usually make claims like that. So thank you for making this a big part of that promise.
Yeah, I think this is my 487th Zoom call this week, and it is absolutely the best Zoom call I've been on this week. So rock on.
That means a lot because you are in demand, and it means so much. So I'm going to close this out from the recording standpoint with a sincere thank you and say that a lot of people on this call have been responsible for giving me the confidence and the courage to say, hey, if you host an event, you're not left out. If you host an event, you can invite great people and connect great people. I have long-form conversations on my podcast every Sunday. And to distill this and give you something different, I hope you dug it. If you didn't, I can't do better for you. I really can't. This is something that I'll go have a beverage now and I'll smile, and I can promise you I won't regret much. I was a little slow on the mute early on. I accidentally told one of our guests and audience members that their voice was too loud. I'll probably think about that later tonight. I didn't mean to insult anybody with that. But overall, we got 1% better today. There's no question. I give you permission to have a beverage of your choice. Not that all of you need it. I love you guys for coming out for this. And thank you so much for being here.